Hey guys, happy Friday. In today's video, I'd like to do a deep dive analysis, cover my price predictions of Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, MSTR, and the big three Bitcoin miners. We'll cover what my price prediction is in the remainder year of 2025, as well as covering the latest updates in the Bitcoin market. Most of you are wondering, is now a time to buy, hold, or sell? I think with where we are, there's so much market sentiment going on right now. In fact, we saw big inflows, especially in Bitcoin ETFs like BlackRock's ETF IBIT with $913 million inflow as institutional interest surges, which really indicates robust market confidence and increased adoption. We think about global game theory. We hear a lot about financial institutions buying up Bitcoin at the government level. There's a race between the United States and China. There's a small disparity there. We also see that in the United States, where we have newly created companies like 21 now trying to buy up as much as Bitcoin as possible using the MicroStrategy playbook. And most of you are wondering, is this going to be a win-win situation for Saylor? Is this going to drive more competition? What does this all mean? I think overall, this is really just going to increase the price of Bitcoin. So many companies buying up Bitcoin, so many financial institutions buying Bitcoin, governments, even retail. What does that mean? Demand just shoots up. And for those reasons, the price of Bitcoin at one point, it'll just skyrocket to millions of dollars. In fact, Kathy Woods continues to buy up Bitcoin, and she just forecasted 2030 Bitcoin will be somewhere around $2.3 million, which is very reasonable. And as we look at the Bitcoin exchange supply, it hits a 6 year low due to just so much buying going on from like institutions like BlackRock, Fidelity, which really underscores its evolving corporate appeal and suggesting a shift in asset acquisition strategy. Now, what we also have been seeing is the performance of Bitcoin over the last couple of weeks. Even in the month of April, March, we saw a number of days where Bitcoin has been decoupling from the Wall Street performance. So now investors are beginning to see Bitcoin as the ultimate safe haven, a hedge, if you will, against inflation, driving its decoupling from like the Mag 7 stocks, where we see companies like Strategy outperforming, which may indicate a trend towards diversifying and hedging strategies, which is why we now see financial institutions having the ability for investors to diversify into crypto or even Bitcoin related hedge stocks like Strategy and Bitcoin mining stocks. So let's dive deep. I'll be covering the latest updates around the crypto market as well as doing technical analysis. And I would encourage staying until the end of the video where I will be playing a couple of quick Michael Saylor clips. Let's begin, guys. Let's start off with a post from the Bitcoin therapist. So he posts that gold's market cap is about 12 times that of Bitcoin at $22 trillion, number one asset class in the world. Bitcoin is going significantly higher. I mean, they just bypass like Google, and they're like right behind Amazon, very close to those Mag 7 companies. And at one point will bypass like Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia. And I think there is anticipation that within the matter of like a year or two, it may very well be possible that Bitcoin, or even end of 2025, will it be right behind gold at the end of the year? There's no question, as to whether Bitcoin will be like far behind gold. In fact, they're gonna bypass gold being the number one asset class in the world at one point. What we see now, 1.8 trillion, it's going to dominate that number. What does that mean when we look at companies like Strategy and the Bitcoin miners? Market capitalization will also grow as well. Here is a visual I want to lay out. We talked about the exchange reserve Bitcoin supply has been decreasing significantly. And when the supply decreases, what does that mean? Price of Bitcoin goes up, demand goes up. When you have a large amount of supply with anything in life, prices goes down. So this is the law of economics that we're seeing, and it's really playing out in that the demand increases when the supply becomes very scarce. So for those reasons, we're going to see Bitcoin price send it to new levels. Here's an interesting post from Brewdog. Just another day for Mara shareholders. It's a funny photo where you have this character looking outside where MicroStrategy is just doing, so well today, along with 21 CEP. It's just been skyrocketing. But I think there will be better days. It's just, it's on a delayed aspect right now. Yes, we saw the miners take a big beating. In fact, MSTR took a big beating early on in November. However, the miners, they took a beating, at the beginning of like January. So it took a beating at a later point in time. So that means I think that the trajectory is barely starting. In fact, we saw strategy have a reversal earlier in the month of April, and the miners are barely picking up with that. But that doesn't mean that companies like Mara and the miners won't have, bullish days to come. But I think there's going to be win-win situation for like strategy and the miners as well. Let's take a look at the hash rate index. So where the current price of Bitcoin right now is $95,000. One of the key things is hash price is at around close to $50 for spot hash price. Now, one of the key indicators I like looking at is that the estimated difficulty adjustment just decreased. So mining difficulty has reduced down, and that will result in, less cost expenditures, which is a key indicator for the miners to have a reversal pattern based on fundamentals as companies continue to increase hash rate and build up the HODL amount. We're looking at Bitcoin technical analysis. Current price right now is at $95,050. Key indicator that we're seeing is that, with this bull flag that we're seeing, Bitcoin hovering in this continuous cycle, with a trend line slope going down. We see lower lows for several months since November all the way to like April. But what happened? Towards the second week of April, we saw price continue to go up with that, that huge downward pressure since April 8th, where it reached like 72,000. What happened? Bitcoin broke that barrier, the 50-day simple moving average, and then it crossed the 200-day simple moving average, about 4 days ago, and it continues to climb up. So what goes down very quickly can just pop back up. I think that with Bitcoin, especially in Bitcoin bull cycles, it performs for about 3 years before, the pressure starts cooling off. But I think because we had that bearish cycle in 2022, 2023 picking up, we're at that third year. And obviously Q1 was an underperforming year. So we're definitely going to see, Bitcoin price break into 100K. We're only less than 5% away. Will that happen during the weekend? It's very possible. Is it going to be next week? I think that is very possible. In terms of the prior resistance of $109,000, I think that sometime in Q2, Q3, we're going to have, Bitcoin price, break through that medium of like 150K. We've heard from the analysts in that Tom Lee is forecasting, around that $180,000 or even perhaps above $200,000. So with all of that price predictions with Bitcoin, what does that mean for strategy? Most of you are forecasting that MicroStrategy, like let's say if Bitcoin goes to like 200K, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Put it in the chat. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let's say if and when Bitcoin reaches $150,000, $200,000, let me know in the comments where you think strategy's price action will be at that time. Where we currently are, based on technicals, I've been talking about this key line, prior resistance line, which now may very well be that new support line. I mean, we're seeing the price action creep up after, just hovering in this bull flag similar to the Bitcoin performance. But now that we're seeing price action pop above that 340 threshold, hopefully we'll continue to see it hold ground, not let it drop below the support line. But even if it does, as long as it just hovers, back and forth, that'll be that new support line before we start establishing, getting back into that prior resistance that we saw back in, November, December, getting into that 450 range before we start climbing up to that next tier threshold of 550. But I think as soon as we break through 150K, 200K, we're definitely going to, at a minimum, get above that 700 dollar threshold. And depending on the speed of how fast Bitcoin goes, we may very well see this godlike candle where Bitcoin price goes up. Strategy can just go into that four-digit range. As we look at the weekly candles, I see, some godlike green candles here. And one of the key factors that we're seeing is that the MACD crossing, it's coming very soon. So on the weekly, we're anticipating to see green, sine waves with the candles that's coming very soon. And I think that this is very good signals that we're seeing based on technicals after just a huge bleed out on the weekly candles. So it's definitely, V shaping, U shaping, if you will, cup and handle forming. So it's just a matter of time. I think 2025 is really going to be a great year for strategy to show how high it can go. Let's take a look at Mara, one of the biggest Bitcoin miners, currently about 48,000 Bitcoins on their balance sheet. So they're a big time uh, Bitcoin hodler, number two company in the world right now with the most amount of Bitcoin. So even if, 21, starts off with the amount of Bitcoin, Mara, they're going to try to find out ways how to buy more Bitcoin potentially and just continue to increase the hash rate and mine Bitcoin. I mean, they're racking in like close to 900 Bitcoins per month. So every year they're bringing in 12,000 Bitcoin mining at a fixed cost, a lower cost than buying it. But one of the key technicals that we're seeing is this breakout that we're be beginning to see, even though we see big retracement since November timeframe. I mean, it dropped, more than 60% from that top point of like $31. I mean, it reached $30 on multiple occurrences, and then it dropped all the way down to like sub like, $9. And what does that mean now? Popping back up 14. What goes down very fast like that? It has potential to just have a godlike candle. I think that because strategy broke out first, the miners are going to break out. There's going to be a lag time, but it's on that verge of breaking out as well. We've seen what happened before, with the miners during the last bull cycle where like Mara went from like $3 to $81. So I think there's possibility for Mara to have just like a immediate 3 to 5x or even more, so just be on the lookout for this. I mean, I definitely do think that it's still undervalued. It can easily just pop back up into the $30 within a matter of like days. So I think Q2 is looking very solid just based on the technicals, and we're gonna hear some solid news coming out from Mara, along with production numbers coming out in the next couple of days. We're looking at Riot. They're the number three company when it comes to the most amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So Riot is a big time company with close to 20,000 Bitcoins on their balance sheet. I mean, Mara and Riot, they have applied the MSTR playbook, and they are a miner, so they mine at a fixed cost. And one of the interesting things with Riot is that they're also pivoting, towards HPC AI potential. So now they just announced solid news with $100 million backed loan using their Bitcoin holdings in partnership with Coinbase with a loan of like 100 million to support the rollout of their facility at Corsicana to support the AI infrastructure. So I think all of that is cool because this is the very first time where we see a new strategy, a non-dilutive strategy, where that really adds values to the company and that it builds up its infrastructure, leveraging its Bitcoin balance sheet and interest of like 3.25 that, starts about a year later from now and then can be extended for another year, which means, the interest kicks in like, 700 days from now. So I think all of that is just going to be a win-win situation for Riot to scale up its business operations as well as having a solid balance sheet. So what I like about Riot is that they're significantly undervalued from technicals. They've been just heavily shorted recently, but we're seeing some nice price movements on the daily charts. We're seeing MACD showing bullish divergence. Relative strength has been steadily picking up, and I think it's only a matter of time where we're going to see that big run up. We saw that, during that time of like September all the way to November. So just within a matter of weeks, going like from like $6 to $15. I think that as Bitcoin breaks out, we may very well see some huge price actions where it can just run up to like $20. We're looking at CleanSpark's technical analysis, so very similar performance, just looking at this all has like similar patterns with Bitcoin strategy, Mara, Riot. Key thing is that CleanSpark, it was at like $18, significantly oversold, got down to like $6. So that's a huge drop. But key thing is that we're seeing nice improvements. I mean, now it's back into that $9 range. It's just a matter of time. Maybe next week we'll see it back into that double digit range. Can you just believe it? I mean, just going down to like $6 and then back into that double digit range. It's that quick. Things can change very fast. I mean, there's lots of, believers of CleanSpark who sold off, at that time point of Bitcoin price going down, but everything just reversed. And this is a key signal. Confidence is coming in. I think people are beginning to see miners having the potential. And I think that we're seeing a reversal with MACD relative strength picking up. So this is looking very good for CleanSpark in terms of the performance that we've seen over the course of, the last week of trading. And I think we'll head into the following week, with potential, continued upward trajectory, especially just with the price hovering in this bull flag for many months. And it's only a matter of time where we're going to see that relative strength just shoot back up. So with all of that, I want to play some quick video clips for you.
Well, Keith, like once I understood Bitcoin, I would go to bed with anxiety at night, feeling short, because I worried that somebody else would figure out what I'd figured out and they would buy it all and I wouldn't be able to buy anymore. And so once you get something and you look out decade or decades, the only issue is, how do I buy more of it?
Yeah.
It's been a great journey since August 10th of 2020. MicroStrategy's bought about $8.3 billion worth of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up 44% a year on average since then. The S&P is up 12%. And since we levered it, we're up 825%. The number one performing stock in the S&P is NVIDIA, up 821% as of Friday. So we beat every single company in the S&P index using a Bitcoin strategy. Bitcoin's 0.1% of the capital in the world right now. I think it's going to go to 7% of the capital.
7%.
My long-term forecast is it's going to go to 13 million over 21 years.
13 million.
13 million. But what is it 5 years from now? Your 4-year calculus.
It's been growing 44% a year with about a 40 to 50 vol. I would think it'll move on at 40%, then click down to 35, then 30, then 25. And at some point, it'll be the S&P return plus 8%, and it'll be the S&P vol plus 8%, because it's always going to be a more global, open, free capital market.
How is there stuff that's above your pay grade? You're worth billions. I mean, we can say that it's above our pay grade, but who gets to decide if it's above your pay grade?
He might have been it's below his pay grade.
Right. Exactly.
Bitcoin's an expression in this view that you want to invest in an asset without counterparty risk, which means you don't want to be counterparty to a country, a currency, a city, a company, a commodity, or a culture, right? So it's people think it's a risky thing. It's all about people wanting to not take risk. They don't want to guess whether Picasso's or real estate in New York or Nvidia stock will be higher in 10 years. They want to buy money. They want to buy 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world forever.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed another episode where I cover technical analysis of Bitcoin strategy and the big three Bitcoin miners, as well as sharing with you the latest updates around the Bitcoin markets. Now, if you're new to this channel, first off, I would really appreciate hitting the like, subscribing for more related content. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, guys.